pal.
Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. I am literally on my way out the door to the airport to get to London for our Techstars Web3 Builders Night. But I thought the time was right to look back at some of the most helpful insights that Web3 leaders have shared with us over the past year and a half. The common thread you'll hear from all of these voices is that the things that make a great Web3 project or startup focus a heck of a lot more on humanity than technology. So we're featuring Web3 investors, advisors, and founders, including Joey Krug from Pantera Capital, Matthew Graham from Sino Global Capital, Teana Baker-Taylor from Circle, Sam Williams from Arweave, John Wu from Ava Labs, Clarisse Hagege from Dfns, Sean Lee from Odsy, Tim Boss from ShareRing and DAO expert Michelle Tsing. Also, one of the takeaways from all of these insights is that they ring true across all kinds of startups and economic cycles. The first voice you'll hear is Teana Baker-Taylor from Circle. We recorded this in late 2021, which was before she joined Circle, and her words are definitely time-tested. So here we go again with Money Never Sleeps.
So the best founder stories, the ones that have moved me, which, create an emotional story that I think moves customers and, gets people excited about a project, are when a founder solves a problem that they've experienced themselves. Mm-hmm. And so when you hear these stories about people that kind of, didn't have access to this or couldn't get that, and they thought, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go and build it myself. Or people who have, maybe worked in an industry kind of doing things the old way and thought, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do this. And these people aren't going to let me do it. So I'm going to go and build my own thing and try and fix this from the inside. I think those stories are really powerful. Mm-hmm. So from a founder perspective, I think what I would be looking for are people that are really passionate about the problem they're trying to solve, not necessarily the thing that they're trying to build. And sometimes I think that people get their messaging a bit conflated, right? So, my advice for founders is, tell me why this is important to you. Don't tell me about the widget. Like, I actually don't care about the thing that you're building. Tell me about the problem you're trying to solve. Who is this a problem for? Why has it been like this for this, length of time? Like, why does this problem exist? And, what's the upside of solving this problem? And that's how you get people to really emotionally care about your project. And then once that happens, then you kind of engender passion, whether that's from your team or your VCs or your co-founders. And I think that's the catalyst that propels startups into, potentially unicorns. It's the passion piece.
Do you think there is a relationship between how deeply experienced someone is with a problem they're solving and their level of humility as a founder?
100%. Yeah. So I think the other key quality that I've seen with founders that succeed is self-awareness. So, is that always being humble? I think we kind of throw that word around a lot. People go, I'm so humble, or it's important that we hire people that are humble. And yes, humility is absolutely a virtue, but being self-aware and understanding that maybe you're not always feeling benevolent or humility, and being able to internally manage for that and develop empathy and really kind of lean into being empathetic. I guess having that tool in your tool chest around, self-awareness. Who are you? How are you showing up in the world? How do other people experience you? And then being able to, basically tailor your message to your audience. That's super critical. And I think that a lot of founders, and so maybe this is where humility becomes kind of the nomenclature that we go to, is if you kind of show up and you are who you are in every situation with every audience, you're not going to reach as many people as you might if you can take a step back and kind of look at it from a position of, I'm here to solve a problem. I'm here to be of service is not of interest to you, as opposed to here, I'm solving this problem. It's this cool thing and you should learn about it.
Yeah. No, this was the clincher for me, Teana, of this chat, and that this understanding that being humbled by a problem, so much so that you really want to solve it. You need that knowledge, you need that experience. But if you're solving for X, there's, solving for Y, there's solving for Z and A, B, C, D, E, and F, and knowing which ones you can actually solve and those that you can't, it takes a huge amount of self-awareness. I love that.
Next up is John Wu, the president of Ava Labs, who lead the development of the Avalanche ecosystem, who featured on episode 164 in November of 2021.
Speaking of some of these qualities of founders and of Web3 projects in general, what do you think some of the qualities are that will make a great Web3 project and eventually a great Web3 business startup?
This question is constantly asked of me from traditional venture capitalists, because a lot of traditional venture capitalists now are getting into the blockchain and crypto space and trying to figure out how to invest. It's also asked of me and my former hedge fund friends in technology who are trying to invest in the space. The experience ultimately is becoming more and more important in the space. Just like the example I use where I think 3 or 4 years ago, you can get away with just being a crypto native Greek coder and just like throw something out there and let's give it a shot and see if it sticks. The bar is being raised. So back to that example, you can't just do that anymore because great, you guys are super smart and you're young, you know nothing about business or the domain expertise. But suddenly I look over here, I have this team that has your talent and they have business experience and they have domain expertise. So if you're a venture capitalist now in the traditional Silicon Valley sense, you're looking at the latter, not the former.
Now let's move on to Michelle Tsing, a Web3 advisor and DAO expert. She featured on episode 161 in October of 2021.
Michelle, if you had one thing that you would absolutely look for as a leading indicator of a fantastic founder in the Web3 space, what would that be?
I think the number one thing I'm looking for, in a fantastic founder is whether they're humble or not, and that's important for me as a mentor and an advisor. But also from my experience at PayPal, right? I've negotiated transactions with a number of really well-known companies that are no longer here. And when negotiating with them, I always sensed a lot of pride, and there are, people, that say that, like the number one reason that you'll fail is because you don't listen and because you're really prideful. And so when working with founders, the people who wanted to learn, who listened, they don't have to execute, your advice. You just want them to think about it and make a very informed decision after seeking, advice from different people and seeking mentorship. But if they're not humble, that it's kind of hard to work with them and they may not succeed one day. And there's founders who kind of get away with that, but I kind of love founders who are humble and who are gritty, right? They don't give up and they just keep on going, and that's really, really important to succeed and to do well.
Next up is Matthew Graham, the CEO of Sino Global Capital, who featured on episode 165 in November 2021. The one thing about talking to Matty is that you want to get him when he's expressing himself passionately. And with that passion comes a handful of F-bombs. So we've left those in just where he dropped them so that you, our listener, gets a full experience of Matty Graham.
What do you say to a founder when they're thinking about what's the best way to start getting people behind their project? Right? What do you say to them?
I internally, we refer to them as super fans. So I think about it like this. So most projects never get even 1 or 2 super fans. They get, some users, but they never get people that are like, holy shit, fucking love this. I need it. And I want to tell people about it. They never really get even one super fan. But what I think is really true, and empirically it's true, is that if you get even one or two, there's a pretty good chance you can get 10 or 20. And if you get 10 or 20, there's a pretty good chance you can get 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000. But it's really hard to get even one or two, like legitimate, not like your mom or whatever, like legitimate people that know you from your product and they fucking love it. So you need to think about, when you start, don't think about how to get 1 million super fans. Think about how to get one or two. If you get one or two, I really believe you're going to get dozens, and then you're going to be on your way. Most people never get any that far, but start just thinking, how am I going to get a couple people that just fucking love my product and want to tell everyone about it? I would reframe it and think about it from that standpoint rather than starting with how can I get millions of users.
Next up is Joey Krug from Pantera Capital. We recorded this one with Joey in December 2021, and he featured on episode 166.
Thinking about where you kind of focus when you're looking at projects, right? What do you think are some of the leading indicators? If you're really early on something, what do you think of some of the leading indicators of what makes a high quality Web3 project?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, shipping velocity. I remember like projects that I've talked to who ship product quickly, they tend to be higher quality teams. And so often in a very early project, like you're not always going to have like a team with some like massive pedigree. If you only invest in pedigreed teams, like you're going to miss out on a lot of the upside. Like if I think back to like the kind of like, 75 to 100x investments I've made, very few of them or almost none of them, have like the classic, like, two people who went to Stanford previously launched a startup and sold it. And it was great kind of thing. Like there are people who had good backgrounds, like, and who seemed smart, but like you didn't really know for certain how well they were going to execute. And so I think to me, the highest signal is just like, how fast is someone, like, say you meet a founder and it's really early, you talk to them a couple months later, and a couple months ago, they told you they're going to build something. Have they built it the next time they come back? Are they like, oh, actually it's going to be 6 to 9 more months? That's a good question. Cause it's like, well, how well calibrated are they internally for like whether they can like ship product or actually do what they claim they're going to set out to do? And then I think also like time to getting a product into the market is also a hugely strong indicator. Like we had this one company we invested in recently, and it's these founders of these two guys who, like, they were in college when we invested. They're like 18 or something, and it's a decentralized DeFi insurance protocol. And I talked to them, and like between like the meetings of like between me having the first call, me giving them the term sheet, and then us signing the deal, like they built a huge amount of product in that time window. And then like by the time we had our, second or third, or maybe fourth weekly sync, they actually launched the product on mainnet. Like it was within a couple of months, maybe 2 to 4 months, maybe total time frame from when I first like met them and then invested, and then they launched, early this summer or something like that. And so that's like a really strong signal, and you don't even have traction data on that at that point, but that like they can ship product fast. And so I think that's my number one thing that I look for.
From Joey Krug, we're going to move on to Tim Boss, the founder and CEO of ShareRing, who featured on episode 169 that we recorded in December of 2021.
What do you think is a leading indicator for an early stage company, an early stage project, of what makes a great Web3 project?
Wow. I mean, I think team is a big one. So it's not just about the team's history and things like that. It's about, is this a team that has the ability to put together the great idea to come up with it? Another indicator is, does this idea have real world use or real world benefit? And then obviously look at what are their barriers. So barriers might be not the right team or things like that. And then the uniqueness of the idea. It doesn't have to be super unique, but if they're sort of coming up with an idea that you've seen 20 other pitches for in the last week, what makes you think that they are going to be able to do it that the other 20 aren't going to be able to do as well? And then their approach. I think it's really important to sort of look at what their approach is, how they're going to scale, and then how they're going to do even things like marketing and PR as well. And then you look at if they're doing a fundraise, what are they raising? Are they raising enough? Like some of these projects are looking at raising a very, very small amount, and there's absolutely no way they'll be able to do what they're going to do with the amount that they're raising. But then you look at maybe some of their token model, and it's obvious that they're raising a small amount because they're hoping to get more money out of the token itself later on, things like that. But yeah, I think team, barriers to entry, ability to scale, their PR marketing plan, and how are they going to do better than the other 10 companies that are inevitably going to try doing it as well?
Clarisse Hagege is up next, and she's the co-founder and CEO of Dfns. Clarisse featured on episode 202 that we recorded in December of 2022.
But there's some pretty harsh headwinds that are going up against folks right now. And I think a strategy around enabling those that are building in Web2 to actually get their feet into Web3 with some sound developer tools is a good way to do this. But even with these headwinds on right now, builders are still building. I just talked to 2 founders today who were like, oh, it's discouraging. But it's like, we're just going to keep going. So what is it like on the inside of Dfns when thinking about these headwinds out there right now?
Yeah. So say two true ways to answer this question. First, my point of view, being a builder in the blockchain industry, I was obviously, when first we started hitting a bear market, then the FTX fiasco, I was myself questioning, all right, are we going to have a market? Is it, are we entering a winter that will keep killing us for the next, year, and are we going to survive that? Obviously, these are questions that you wonder. But the beauty, and I think where we position, we actually see people from actually inception to the day they have an idea up to the time where they want to rethink their infrastructure because they've gotten more mature. So we do see kind of all from the startup points to the scale up points. And it's amazing. No one has really stopped building or pushed back their product. We have maybe few use cases that are much more heavy crypto investing focused where they delayed a bit the integration. But mostly, we serve 60% use case on crypto, 40% on NFTs, and everyone keep on building. I think, when you're in a bear market, you should start building. And I think this is true in all industry forever. And this is usually the time where you get the best solutions, right? Because you're focused, because you're no longer trying to catch up with a market that is growing very fast and not looking at your own priority. You're focused on building good product for people that are actually building use case on blockchain and no longer for the hype part. I think there was a very interesting analysis showing that basically bear market after bear market, the core level of numbers of people building on blockchain, investing in blockchain, in crypto, is actually increasing. So yes, we're still going through this fluctuation, but the base is increasing slowly, and I think believers are increasing as well. And now it has really come across basically all industry, all size of company, people that have invested in divisions, in managers to actually figure out a strategy around, okay, what's our metaverse strategy? What's our NFT strategy? How do we monetize? How can that help us creating a better user experience for our clients, right? Well, they have started this project, and so they don't really care about consequences of a fraudulent act in a specific industry. They don't care at all. They are here to build. They're here for the future, and I think now we've reached a mass that is big enough that we all know the big picture is, there is a big picture, and we'll all know that this is really just the early stage of this market, and we're basically building for the next 10 years to come.
Next up is Sean Lee, former CEO of Algorand and now co-founder of the Odsy network, who featured on episode 201 in December of 2022.
And speaking of the youth, right, and those that are at the beginning of their journey now and the early stage founders, I mean, I know you do some mentorship of founders. What direction are you pointing them in with this?
One thing that I remind them of that is the pace of technical innovation continues to accelerate. Nowhere do we see that faster than here. I mean, when I was in the cloud computing stage, we used to say, oh my God, cloud is moving so much faster than everything else, right? And then now that we're in crypto and blockchain, I mean, oh my God, cloud was cloud's a long time ago, right? As far as I'm concerned. So if you think about that, one thing that I'm not saying this to young founders to scare them. I actually want to encourage them that the fact that it is moving so quickly, that just means that they need to keep their eyes open. They need to learn as much as they can, and they need to have the audacity or the courage to pivot at any moment in time, right? Who would have knew, 2-3 weeks ago, we have this massive debacle happen in crypto, right? I mean, we already have 6 months.
What are you talking about?
What debacle? I mean, if you think about it, we knew it was happening, right? We knew it was happening. Those of us that have come through the financial crisis, one wave doesn't just get covered up right off the bat. There's another wave, and I would argue we're not done with it yet. The reality is that shouldn't deter you from getting into this space if you truly believe in the potential of the technology and this digitization of assets, right? This phase, if it's not something that you truly believe in, maybe this is not the place to get into at this moment in time. However, if you truly believe it, I think many people would have said bear markets are the best time to build. And if you've got the ability to raise some funds, find, like-minded team members where you put your heads down and build and find a problem that you are solving, which will take us, the entire industry, to the next phase, then I would encourage them with both of my hands up, right? And I would ask my friends to go support them as well. I think it's important for all of us to continue to band together and look at the potential and look at the reality of where we are, and then trying to navigate accordingly, rather than just having cold feet or looking at this industry purely because of the ridiculous speculations that has happened the last 2-3 years and say, hey, this is a get rich quick industry and I'm going to come in and come out. It doesn't happen. That is not what innovation is all about. And especially in this space, that is the wrong mentality to take.
I know. And it's one of the things we look for in founders. One of the big things we look for in founders, Sean, is deep firsthand experience of the problem you're solving. And we're finishing up with Sam Williams, co-founder and CEO of Arweave, who I interviewed in December of 2022 on the Techstars Give First podcast, and we featured in episode 205 of Money Never Sleeps. It's great to finish up this episode with Sam, as this was one of the most inspirational episodes that I've recorded in my 6 years of podcasting. Take it away, Sam.
But the message I try and give new founders if they're thinking about going through this is just be resilient. Just keep doing your thing, no matter whether it's raining or shining outside. It really shouldn't matter to you, because to be honest, the market is going to have crazy things happen. It's not a sane thing to be around in my experience, particularly in crypto. It's so volatile. And my hope is that over time it becomes less volatile. But for what it is right now, you got to be realistic. It's going to be overly excited sometimes and super underexcited other times. And so the best kind of wisdom I've picked up along the way is just be robustly resilient. Just focus on the things that you actually think will matter in 5 years, not the things that people are shouting about. Pump the token price or whatever. Just focus on the long term. And it does pay off. At the beginning of 2020, we must have been pushing about 500 to 1,000 transactions to Arweave a day. And a transaction is a piece of data stored. By the end of 2021, that was up to about 5 million.
Wow.
And our approach has not changed one iota from day one. You just got to be resilient. You got to focus on blocking out the noise, I would say. That's a big one if you're operating in crypto or crypto adjacent space.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to all of the guests we've featured in this episode for sharing their insights. We've linked all of the original episodes in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie, so dive back in and give them a listen, as there are a lot more valuable nuggets in each of those episodes. Thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for helping me pull this together as well. He's an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early stage startup investor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3, and I lead the Techstars Web3 Accelerator. There are plenty of links in the show notes on moneyneversleeps.ie on how to get in touch, so don't hesitate to reach out. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!